Fasten your seatbelt. I am taking you for the ride of your life. I'm going to show you what this car can really do. Are you ready?
I am ready.
Hang on.
Okay.
Here we go.
Hold on to your butts.
Go get him, kid.
It might be a tumor.
It's not a tumor. Not a tumor at all.
You're going to ask me. So you can go ahead and ask me what you're going to ask me. And my natural response could be to get offended.
Hey, want to hear the most annoying sound in the world?
Yeah, well, that's just like your opinion, man.
All right.
You're listening to the 30-something movie podcast. One movie each week, 30 years in the making. It is the 30-something movie podcast. We are in LA this time. This is continuing on our California Dreams month that we've got here, and I think we've talked before. We've had movies on this podcast before that are very LA centric, and you see like some of the same locations, Repo Man and some of those movies that are very. We've said before, it's like a love letter to Los Angeles, and this one in particular. I mean, it's even called L.A. Story, so you can't get much more L.A. than this one. But that's coming up here a little bit later. Before we dive into all that, I have two fine, upstanding L.A. celebrities themselves. Pat, don't make a weird face.
I'm wondering who the guest hosts are on the
guest
show.
monitor.
Me too. This is a surprise.
Steve Martin is here tonight. No. I have with me two wild and crazy guys.
I know who those guys are.
We know those guys.
We are here for the swinging. All right. So I have with me Bo Warmbold. Bo, are you feeling wild and crazy?
I'm here to pump you up.
There we go. Pat, are you feeling wild and crazy?
Yes, I am, John. I'm feeling wild and crazy.
You look like it's Christmas time. You're all wrapped up in a blanket.
I do. Well, see, we're kind of. It is. I did notice that it looks rather like I'm wearing a robe. No, it's getting warm enough that we're turning the heat off. But then at night, it gets cold. Mm-hmm. Then I sit still. I get cold. And that's okay. But when I get cold, I tend to fall asleep. And I'm trying to stay awake for these podcasts.
You do. You do kind of look like you're wearing a robe. You're going with like the Hugh Hefner look here.
I got that going on. I need a,
That's for the next movie.
Yes.
There it is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It is. It does kind of look like a robe. This is.
Welcome to the 30-something podcast after dark.
Red Shoe Podcasting.
There you go. All right. Well, before we get into our movie, very, very quickly, spoiler alerts. We spoil freely, so be warned. The 30-something movie podcast is part of the Scene Stealers podcast network. This episode is sponsored by Scene Stealers International Convention Agent, who have a top-class roster of movie and TV stars ready to be booked now for your Comic-Con or event. For more information, check out www.scenestealersglobal.com. And then visit our website, 30podcast.com. That's 30podcast.com. You can leave a rating. You can leave a voicemail. You could become a co-executive producer via Patreon. What would you get, gentlemen? I'm going to put you on the spot here. What would you get if you became a co-executive producer on Patreon?
A guest spot on an episode?
You could. That is one of the tiers. You could get a guest spot on an episode.
You get to suggest or select a movie
for
us to review.
You could suggest or select. Yes, absolutely. What do you get at any level of support? What would the people get? You got to give the people what they want.
Well, by happenstance, I usually insult their favorite movie, but I don't know if that's something that we want to. I don't know if that's a plus or a negative.
That's a byproduct.
Okay, that's a byproduct. Yeah.
It's
tell you about a byproduct.
It's not a hug. It's not a hug from Pat.
No. Well, and we're still coming out of the pandemic, so I don't know how much.
That's true. Can we hand out hugs on the podcast? We have to start handing out elbow bumps. There we go. Well, at any level of support, you would have access to some of our exclusive Patreon-only podcasts that we have out there. And we have one that, let me take a look at it really, really fast here, that should be coming out
Hours
you know what?
of
Actually,
entertainment.
it by the time we would have recorded this, it came out a few days ago. So we have the Raiders of the Lost Ark episode came out just a few days ago. So that was
hours of entertainment.
Literally hours of entertainment. That was one that was like probably like a 3.5 to 4 hour extravaganza.
It was longer than the movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, there's some good stuff out there.
Longer than the Spears and Braveheart.
Yes.
Yes.
Hold.
Mm-hmm.
Hold.
That's right. So yeah, no, plenty of good stuff. So Raiders of the Lost Ark was the most recent one. We did our favorite songs of 90 and 91 before that. We had Willy Wonka from 1971 before that. We had Clash of the Titans before that. We've had all kinds of good ones. So there's at least, I want to say 6 or 7 that are out there for Patreon subscribers. So if you hop on there and support us at any level on Patreon, you get access to those. So if that's something that you are interested in doing, then hop on over. I don't know what hepping is.
Maybe like hef because of the robe looking.
I was thinking of the robe. The robe is distracting me. So it
happens, man.
It's okay.
It happens.
It's all right. It's all right. You just need like a pipe or a cigar or something.
I was gonna say that's right.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Yeah, So you can hop on over to our website. You could hop there instead of hepping there. If you want to hep, go for it.
I was gonna say hepping, as long as you go, fine.
As long as you go, that's fine. Just go check it out. All right, so I think that's pretty much what we got for right now. So we can just jump on into the movie here.
I think it's time.
Let's do it. So this one is called L.A. Story. Came out on the 8th of February, 1991, rated PG, with a runtime of 1 hour and 35 minutes. It was directed by Mick Jackson, who also directed The Bodyguard and Temple Grandin. Producers on this one were Daniel Melnick, who died in 2009, and Michael Rockmule. Melnick did Altered States and Footloose. Rockmule did Roxanne and Flatliners. Pat, how many times have you seen Flatliners?
Just the once, John.
Just the once.
I'm next time I'm going to try and watch it 3 times in one night.
I bet I could watch it 6 times, Pat.
I'm going to go for 9.
Pat, I bet I could watch it while unconscious 12 times. I think I win.
I thought it was a comedy for the first time when I saw it.
That's still one of my favorite things.
I thought it was. I got about a half hour into it. I thought, I'm not seeing the humor here, guys. I don't know.
It's one of those that I feel like I need to go if I've got like, an extra 20 minutes sitting around where I can just, have some fun with something. I feel like this is one of those where I need to take the trailer and I need to shift up the music and change a voiceover. Have you seen that when they do The Shining and they turn The Shining, they make it look like it's a family film? Yeah. I feel like I should do that just for you so that we make Flatliners look like a comedy.
That can happen, man.
When a team of doctors wants to see what they can do with the afterlife, they get into all kinds of trouble. It's Flatliners.
That's awesome.
I think it'd be perfect. I'm going to do that sometime just for you, Pat.
I think it should be done.
Oh, yes. It will be done.
It will be done.
It will be done. Writer on this one was Steve Martin, who also wrote The Jerk and Roxanne. Cinematography done by Andrew Dunn, who did Flora and Ulysses and The Bodyguard. Music was done by Peter Melnick, who did Roxanne and Arctic Blue. Could not find a budget for this one, but the box office was $28.9 million. Flickmetrics gives it a 70%, and there was no score for Cinema Score on this one. So the interesting thing, and I almost think that might be because this movie is so Los Angeles that it probably wouldn't have played well in other places. The $28.9 million is both worldwide and domestic. So I'm not sure this ever got released anywhere else because didn't sound like it.
Certainly would see a reason for them not to, for sure.
Right. All right. Well, this one stars Steve Martin as Harris K. Telemacher. He was in The Jerk and Three Amigos. Victoria Tennant, who he was married to at the time when they made this movie, played Sarah McDowell. She was in Flowers in the Attic and The Handmaid's Tale, not the current season. There's not the current show that's on now, but older one. Richard E. Grant played Roland Mackey. He was in Gosford Park and Hudson Hawk. Mary Lou Henner played Trudy. She was in Johnny Dangerously and the TV series Taxi. Sarah Jessica Parker played Sandy. That's capital S, little A, little N, capital D, little E, big E, and a little star at the end of it. She was in Sex and the City and Flight of the Navigator. Susan Forrestal played Ariel. She was in Regarding Henry and Primary Colors. Kevin Pollak played Frank Swan. He was in The Usual Suspects and A Few Good Men. Sam McMurray played Morris Frost. He was in Raising Arizona and Addams Family Values. Patrick Stewart played Mr. Perdu, the maitre d' at l'Adio. He was in Star Trek The Next Generation and the X-Men movies. You Cannot Have the Duck. Francis Fisher played...
for la France.
Yes.
Fermez la bouche.
Yep. There you go. Fermez la bouche. Fetchez la vache. Number 1. Fetchez la vache.
Yes.
There we go. All kinds of crossovers. Frances Fisher played June, was in Titanic and Unforgiven. Iman played Cynthia. She was in No Way Out and Star Trek 6. Tommy Hinckley played Ted. He was in the TV series Mad About You and Leatherheads. Larry Miller played Tom. He was in Pretty Woman and Necessary Roughness. Rick Moranis played the Gravedigger. He was in Ghostbusters and Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. And there's a whole bunch that I did not mention here. John Lithgow was in a scene that got deleted from the theatrical release but got put back in when they aired this on TV. Chevy Chase was one of the customers at the restaurant that they wouldn't let him in. I think there were a bunch of Woody Harrelson was the guy in charge of the news studio. Bunch of different.
Cleese plays the mother's voice.
Was it Cleese or was it?
Sure, Cleese.
Okay.
I have to check.
Okay, I thought it was. I thought it might have been Terry Jones, but maybe not.
I thought it was Cleese.
Okay, might have been Cleese.
Confirm.
Okay, all right. Harris K. Telemacher, played by Steve Martin, has the easiest job in the world. He's a TV weatherman in Los Angeles, where the weather is so predictable he tapes his forecast days in advance. Bored with his job, his life, and his relationship with his longtime girlfriend, Trudy, Harris begins to receive secret messages from an electronic freeway sign near his home, which lead him to pursue romance with a British journalist and a vapid young model.
Rather than do an interview with me, which would be fascinating, by the way, I thought that possibly I'd take you on a, kind of a cultural tour of LA.
Look how he's painted the blouse, sort of translucent. You can just make out her breast underneath it. When I see a painting like this, I must admit I get a little emotionally erect.
Bon appetit. See, I'm done already, and I don't remember eating.
What's his girlfriend's name? Sheila. She's the one who's always kissing everyone hello. I hate that. I'm not kissing anyone hello anymore. Hi!
You can be How was I in the meeting?
You were good.
Any advice?
Sure. Skipping. Skipping is the perfect compromise between running and walking. It looks too desperate if you run to a meeting.
What, she's seeing someone else?
Yes, she's going away with him.
So go away with me.
I can't. Don't you see? I would just be using you to get even with her for going away with someone else.
I don't mind.
Let's go.
Great. Woo!
Steve Martin.
Did you know that the same technology used to clean up the Alaskan oil spill can also suck fat from your thighs and chin?
LA Story.
I'll have a decaf coffee.
I'll have a decaf espresso.
I'll have a double decaf cappuccino.
Do you have any decaffeinated coffee ice cream?
I'll have a half double decaffeinated half cap with a twist of lemon.
I'll have a twist of lemon.
I'll have a twist of lemon. Yeah, I'll have a twist of lemon.
I'll have a twist of lemon.
I'll have a twist of lemon.
All right, so one of the funny things about that last little bit when they're around the table and they're going around ordering their, half decaf, whatever coffees, is they go around, and I don't know if you noticed, everyone orders some kind of a coffee drink, and then they all go around and ask for a twist of lemon. And Iman, the supermodel, only orders a twist of lemon.
Only a twist of lemon, yeah. And as why I ever doubt you, I do not know. Of course, it was Terry Jones.
Was it Terry Jones? Okay.
Why do I even bother checking?
I don't know. Bo, I'm not sure if I'm proud of that.
Proud or not, we're right.
Hold on. Am I recording? I want to play that back sometime so that I can play it for other people.
Yeah, well, yeah.
John is always right.
Yeah, well.
You've been John-splained. Okay, here we go. All right. Well, so LA Story. We are all living near Chicago. So LA maybe doesn't have quite as much meaning for us as it does for Steve Martin and some of the other people in this movie. But one of the interesting things I read about this movie before we dive into it is that the director himself is British, and he really didn't have good opinions of Los Angeles. And when he originally read the script of this, he almost thought that it was kind of like a hate letter to Los Angeles, like all the things that were wrong with it. And then when he read it and he talked with Steve Martin, he really found out that it was more of a, no, I love Los Angeles. Like, these are all the quirky things that if you're from LA, you'll know what this is. Like, this is, we're pointing out all the stuff that is just so crazy, but we love it. And it's what's quintessentially Los Angeles. And so that's kind of when he decided, after having a chance to kind of talk it through a little bit, I think that's when he decided to then make the movie. So some of those scenes where the British journalist, blanking on her name, Sara, when she is talking about, being in town from out of the country, and she doesn't quite understand some of the LA stuff, and she doesn't think LA has any culture to it or anything like that. That was actually, some of that was coming out of the director himself, who didn't have, necessarily good vibes, let's say, about Los Angeles before kind of really getting at the heart of what Steve Martin's story was all about.
Yeah.
So I say all that to say, let's jump into our typical first question here. How does this movie make you feel? And is this the first time you've seen this one?
I'm amused, and yes, this is the first time I had seen it.
I'll say content, and yes.
Oh, very nice.
I will say educated. And this is the first time I think I've seen it from beginning to end. When I first started watching it, I was like, I don't remember that part. I don't remember this part. But then there were a few other scenes throughout the movie. I was like, oh yeah, I remember that part. So it took me a little bit, and I think I've seen most of it before, but I don't think I've seen the entire movie from beginning to end. And I will say educated just because it's kind of fun, even if you're not from... Like the first time I saw Ferris Bueller's Day Off, I had never been to Chicago, but I was like, oh, it's kind of cool. Like, I know who the Cubs are. I have no idea what this building is. I have no idea what this parade is. Like, I don't know any of these locations they're going to. Fun movie though. And so this one for me is kind of the same way. Like, as a kid, I don't know. I had this fascination with Los Angeles as a kid. I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was like, I knew that Hollywood was there and that's where they made movies. But I remember I want to say from age 8, I kept telling my parents, I'm like, hey, when I turn 10, that's like a really big birthday. When I turn 10, all I want for my birthday is I want to go to Los Angeles. And they were like, we're not going to Los Angeles. Like, but that's all I want. All I want for my birthday is to go to Los Angeles. And now, I don't know that Los Angeles would be the first place I would choose if I, were picking a vacation to go on. But at the time, I was fascinated by it. I don't know why.
Have you guys ever been to LA?
No.
Okay.
No, even when we lived in Sacramento for about 3 months, right after we moved back from England, and we went to San Francisco. We went to Tahoe. Yeah, but other than that, we never did make it to Los Angeles.
Huh. All right.
So, have you been there?
I have. I've been there twice. Both for like an extended kind of about a week or so, just for different reasons. Got to see different parts of LA, restaurants and beaches, surf, more restaurants, and just driving around.
Yeah. Is it pretty much the way it is in the movie?
Well, I was not quite in the same kind of social circles and all that kind of thing.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, like this, as I recall, like the sites, it looks the same. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it's sort of like the same feel that you get. Oh, wow, they're filming in Chicago. That looks like Chicago, so that seemed to line up. The weather, when they said 72 and sunny, that's kind of how it felt, whenever we were going. But the times I was out there, Yeah, I mean, I was just in like a different spot. So like a lot of the restaurants that we hit and a lot of the places that we hit, it was like in a different area around LA. And LA, if I have this right, LA is a lot more spread out than like a New York or a Chicago. And I know the size is a little different. So like you might be driving further, you know, you might be driving a lot further or a lot longer to get from one part of LA to the other. So yeah, but I mean, they didn't quite go into it in this thing, but yeah, driving in LA was exciting. And I think there's always like the one road that everybody knows, you know what I'm saying? Like the 405. I think all directions started or ended with the 405 or, so like I said, I wasn't out there for very long, but long enough to kind of, you know, scope the scene and see different parts of the city. And it's funny because a lot of these LA movies I had not seen. Otherwise, you know, like I'd, you know, what I probably do this time is I'd probably just see a bunch of the movies and then go and kind of hit the spots where a lot of the filming took place, you know?
Yeah.
Big Lebowski, Pulp Fiction, Heat, this thing, you know, I mean, that would be fun.
Yeah.
So anyways, I digress.
So did you get to, Bo, have you ever been to Los Angeles?
No.
No.
I have not.
Did you get this? I mean, one of the kind of criticisms, they poke fun at the city a little bit in this, and maybe like you said, it's more of being in like the actor comedian circles that, you know, Steve Martin and some of his buddies that were in this movie would have been in. But, you know, one of the criticisms is like there's no culture in Los Angeles, that everything is superficial. Now, I feel like you go to a place like Chicago and there's culture. Like you know there's culture right away. I've been to other cities, you know, around the world and around the country, and they each seem to have their culture. So Pat, as the only person who's ever been to Los Angeles out of this group, did you get the sense from being in LA that it was just things are very just superficial and there's no particular culture there?
I would disagree with that. Like, okay. I think that's, I mean, well, I'm gonna get deep, right? Yeah. I think that would either be people that, you know, you want to try and say, oh, people from Chicago are this way. People from Boston are this way. You know, like people that just want to kind of make a big, broad generalization. One. Two, I think that, I think there very much is culture there. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, you know, and people might laugh when I say this, but I mean, we, you know, for hangout time when we were out there, we hit the beaches and went surfing. And I'm not very good at surfing. I'm trying to say I'm a surfer, but at some point, you know, if I ever head to the coast, like I mean, you guys know this. I mean, when the summer hits, I'm like all about lakes, water skiing and all that. So if I ever move to the coast, yeah, I'm going to like take up surfing because it's pretty awesome. But I mean, there's a bit of pretty unique culture right there when you're hanging out with the surf folks. And it's not like I was hanging with them, but you go out and you realize you're kind of strangers in a strange land. And it's like, okay, I got to kind of fit in here. My buddy that happened into the middle of a surf competition accidentally got in a little bit of trouble, you know, but, I mean, it was like, that was I would say is like a part of culture. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like something you don't see, and it was unique to that spot. Now, if you're talking about music and art and all that, I mean, yeah, they've got museums and symphonies and a music scene there that's, you know, rich and thriving and all that kind of thing. And, you know, I mean, they've got a ton of restaurants there, and some of them are kind of the general fast food thing. Some of them are very unique to that spot. Do you guys get what I'm saying with it? So, I mean, I would kind of shy away from that whole, oh, everyone's just superficial and this, that, and the other thing. Because I just don't like to generalize like that. It's got its own unique culture, everything from the surfers to, you know, the different restaurants that you only find out there. And I'm going to say, like, you know, the 2 times I was out there, one was part of a jazz convention. So, I mean, it was basically a week straight of just listening to music and going, you know, to all that kind of thing. And then the second time was when I was still pretty actively studying the martial arts. I went out and like stayed at our world headquarters for a week. And so, I mean, I was very much surrounded by a lot of Korean culture, going into K-Town for food and all that kind of thing. So, you know, and I, you know, kind of got to meet a whole different group of people that, you know, lived out there and everything like that. So I don't mean it to make it the lecture, but no, I think, you know, I think I personally would be careful about overgeneralizing that it's superficial and all that kind of thing. Cause I'm sure there's superficial people out there, but you know, I think there was a lot of just, you know, good people out there and a lot of culture and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
People that lived out there, I know would say, especially coming from the Midwest, because I went, well, see, and that's the other thing. I went to school up in Eau Claire. And so there were people that were kind of like small city, small town type folks when we would go out there for the jazz convention. So I came from outside of Chicago. So, I mean, that's like a different kind of perspective than people that were, you know, coming from a small town and then going to LA too. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I know some folks that would talk about like, there's some differences, you know, you notice that people like this or this way, but when you're out here, it's a little bit different, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I don't know. Did that make sense? Were my thoughts, you know, clear and all that kind of thing?
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. So this movie, I think in part, you know, Steve Martin, I think, has said about this movie that this is one of the movies that he really enjoyed writing because it was so very much about, you know, his city and his friends and just kind of the life that kind of a little bit of criticism of the late 80s, early 90s, you know, crazes that were going on, I guess, for lack of a better term, in Los Angeles. I mean, you've got everybody's at the restaurants and they're all ordering their like crazy coffee drinks. And, you know, you've got the restaurants that take like 2 months in your financial statement to be able to get into, the high colonics, like all this other stuff that, you know,
doesn't it just clear your head?
Yeah.
I think they're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
What was and they went to the Hard Rock Cafe too, right?
Yeah.
Now didn't that start out in LA? Was that an LA thing and then it stretched? Or am I way off on that?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so. But I mean,
that's right anyway.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things about this movie in particular. I mean, it just, like so many other movies that really use a place as part of the story and almost like a character in the story itself. Like there were so many different, you know, iconic Los Angeles. If you were from there or, you know, if you live there any stretch of time, you probably would know most of these different locations. You know, they have, and there were some fairly famous homes that they're around. I guess the freeway sign that was there was you know, people would stop and either try and like reenact part of the movie there. They'd like take pictures next to it or whatnot. I'm not sure it's there anymore. I think I saw a picture somewhere that it used to be there, but it's not there anymore. You know, some of the different like famous hotels and restaurants and the Los Angeles County Museum of Art, the Hard Rock Cafe, that one kind of aqueduct area that everybody seems to drive through in a Los Angeles movie.
Every chase scene, right?
Well, when you got something that's that perfect, you
I know.
have to do it.
I'm trying to think of all the different. Okay, so they hit it in Terminator 2. They hit it in Gone in 60 Seconds. Is it?
Use it in at least one of the Fast and Furious movies.
Oh yeah, I'm sure that
it was in Greece.
It was in
what
Greece.
was it? In Greece. What about the Italian Job? Did they use that in the Italian Job or no? It might have been a different city for the Italian Job.
Well, let's see here. I can tell you here. Actually, I've got a list, and I don't think this is exhaustive, but the LA River Aqueduct. They show Greece, the core, Chinatown, Them, Terminator 2, The Italian Job.
Okay.
Drive. Point Blank from 1967. Blue Thunder from 83.
Thunder.
SWAT, Gone in 60 Seconds. Point Break.
Oh, Point Break. That's the other one I was thinking of.
Volcano, Repo Man. Yeah. Yeah, no, there have been so many movies that we've done just on this podcast alone that feature the LA River Aqueduct.
Yeah.
I feel like if I ever go to LA, I'm just going to have to drive on it.
Yeah.
Just to say I have.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got to.
Yeah.
You got to.
Yeah. So let me ask you this about this movie. You know, Steve Martin, I think he was quoted at one point as saying that this was one of his last truly, what did he call them? His mature movies. And so he feels like this may be the end of his mature movies. And then he kind of went back into a bunch of different comedies. So let me ask you this. He wrote this as kind of a critique, but also somewhat of a love-hate letter to the city of Los Angeles and all that goes along with that. Did you feel like this movie was thought-provoking? You know, you can watch a Steve Martin movie, you can watch a comedy movie and be like, that's funny. I didn't think any much more beyond, the times that I laughed. In any way, was this movie thought-provoking? Did it cause you to think beyond the laughs? We'll ask it that way.
I think so. I think so. I think I was thinking, and it's funny you mentioned that because what I wanted to go route is like, okay, is there a message here? And then it was like, okay, I guess there's a little bit of a message, like you said, just a little, there's a critique in there, but that's what I was always doing. I was always kind of analyzing the scenes just to kind of see, like, oh, well, why are they acting this way? Or, oh man, he's totally acting this way to manipulate this person. Or, there was always a subtext to everything going on. So I think I can't say that I walked away with like huge lessons for life. But I think the story drew you in enough that it, you were actively engaged in it and you were trying to figure out what the subtext that was being presented to you.
That's a really good way to put it. Definitely, they fed you enough where you were trying to process what was happening. You were trying to process the feelings between these two people. You were processing what would it be like what would it be like to be sitting across from a younger woman saying, yeah, that's my boyfriend right over there, but knowing you're out on a date with her, like, there's enough happening that you sort of have to think. Honestly, in some cases, you have to be paying attention and thinking, even process the funny.
Mm-hmm.
Because some of these jokes are a little right above your head if you're not really paying attention. Like, I want to see it again now because I feel like I missed a few things. And I'm sure I guarantee I did. Yeah. It's very dense.
Yeah. And I totally agree with what you're saying, Bo. And John, I want to hear what, obviously we all do. The entire listening audience wants to hear what you have to say about it. And I'm just going to throw in real quick. After watching a whole bunch of Steve Martin's movies and then seeing him live and then seeing him interviewed and, a bunch of interviews and that Riding and Comedians and Coffee, Getting Cars or whatever it's called. I am so floored. And it's not like, I'm surprised, but I am just so impressed with how intellectual Steve Martin is and how just good and how good he is at what he does and how analytical he is. That's what I'm trying to say is, in terms of trying to like make people laugh and come up with comedy bits and, what's funny and is this funny? And I'm going to try this and I'm going to experiment, and just how much work he puts into his craft. So, it's like, even when I'm watching a comedy, like now my brain is on all cylinders going, oh my gosh, I'm just laughing. But that's like, dude, that's not easy to do. Try to make someone laugh for 30 seconds and that's maybe you can get a 5-second joke out of something. Do you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's funny because I'm always thinking now about comedies. It's like, man, how good are these guys that I'm laughing at this? Like, what, you know what I'm saying? I'm always breaking it down now, and so anyways, I just wanted to throw that in there too. So watching this movie, I'm just like, I am so entertained right now. How are they doing that? Like, and how much time did he spend, and how many rewrites did the script go through, and like how hard was he working to get everything just right? Do you know, it's like in the back of my mind, like I'm trying to process that. Were all the characters, was it like when you're stir frying up, when you're sauteing up vegetables, where you just put a little salt and pepper on them and let the natural flavors come out? Or was he putting, it's just like it Bo, you said it, the word you used was dense. I mean, there was so much in this. I guess I found myself actively thinking about it more than I realized, because I was just like, wow, it is so put together, and I want to figure out like how,
All right. That was the 35.5-minute mark before we started talking about food.
So are we slower or faster on this one now?
I don't know. I haven't really actually been keeping track.
I am hungry though.
Yeah. Right, well, no, I love all the bits in this movie where it ties it to Shakespeare, and it just it does it in such funny ways. But that's one of the things that I've always really appreciated about somebody like a Steve Martin. Exactly like you were saying, that it's a humor, but it's a very sophisticated, kind of almost overly educated humor. But it's done in such a way that it doesn't throw it in your face. It's more of I'm going to drop all these references here, and if you don't get them, that's fine. If you do get them, though, it will be hilarious. Like, I'm not going to make you feel like an idiot because you didn't get the references. I'm going to do it in such a way that if you don't know the references, it might still sound funny. But if you do get the references, awesome. Even better for you. And that's something that we've said several times, like with the kids, we're like, we'll point out to them, like, well, we really like this show because it's this kind of humor. Like, sure, you can have, fart jokes and all kinds of other stuff, and there's a time and a place for those. But the flip side of that is this other kind of humor, like it takes some learning, and it takes reading, and it takes knowledge, and it's like, if you really want to be funny in this kind of way, like that takes work. Yeah, it takes work to do that, and it's not easy at all. So I love how he brings in all the different Shakespeare stuff. I like that one line, and that's kind of that's part of the thought-provoking piece for me as I was watching it. He brings in that one line. He's like, sitting here at the moment, I thought of something else Shakespeare said. He said, hey, life is pretty stupid, with lots of hubbub to keep you busy, but really not amounting to much. Of course, I'm paraphrasing. Life is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. And his other line, the line that I think kind of sums up what I really think the movie is about, and what it's the thought that maybe he's trying to provoke, is really kind of a midlife crisis in the midst of the LA culture. And the line from the movie was, let us just say I was deeply unhappy, but I didn't know it because I was so happy all the time.
Yeah, when he had his whatever heart attack.
Yeah.
Right? Because I've had like 10 heart attacks.
Right. To me, that was
the stationary bike park.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
Stationary bike park. No running.
No running. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and the music choice too.
Yeah,
and what was that? What was that opening? What was that opening tune? It was like that old 1940s style swing, and it was perfect. The way they played it, and all the music was really in that. If you imagine like European outside cafe jazz, but European kind of flavor music. That's what a lot of the soundtrack had. And Enya. And it had like
lots of Enya.
Yeah, a lot of Enya in it as well, which was perfectly
It was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I was sitting there at the end going,
yeah.
That's right.
And what was this? There she was, just walking down the street. I mean, I don't think since American Werewolf in London, I don't think a song had that much of a punch to me at the end of a movie. Mm-hmm. I don't know if what I just said could even be construed as an English sentence, so I'll try and say it again. But like that song had punch.
It's an American sentence. Yeah.
Okay. There you go. But what was that song? I wanted to make mention of it, but it was.
Well, let's see the soundtrack credits.
Okay.
There is Epona by Enya, Exile by Enya, On Your Shore by Enya. There is I've Had My Moments. Let's see.
I read somewhere when I was looking at the soundtrack, they originally didn't release a soundtrack for this.
They did not.
Yeah. There's one called You Drive Me to Distraction. There's Wild Thing.
Yeah, I gotta look this.
Ain't That a Shame?
No.
No.
I might have to put myself on mute and listen to a couple clips of it.
Okay.
I'll give you a topic. Discuss.
See,
Hang on a second.
Ain't That a Shame by Fats Domino, Smoke Rings, Amazing Grace, Clouds, and Symphony No. 5 by Beethoven.
How about Amazing Grace just slipped in there?
Yeah. I appreciated that the sign was playing the bagpipes.
Yes.
I always appreciate that. Always appreciate a good Scottish sign.
Well, you know what they say. If it's not a Scottish, it's crap.
Yep. Get in my belly. You look like a baby. It's a little while till we do that movie.
She'll be 27 in 4 years.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, that's to me, I think that's, that maybe, and I don't want to minimize the movie by saying it's purely about a midlife crisis. But I mean, I think that's kind of the thrust of the movie is it really kind of is about a midlife crisis that he's going through all this and he's like, yeah, I've been my comfortable LA life. And, I was miserable because I was happy all the time. And that's where he really starts to, try to change things up a little bit, like making those little changes and stepping out of the quote unquote unculture of LA, and doing things differently.
Well, and it's an interesting conversation. Could spark an interesting conversation on what does it mean to be happy? Mm-hmm. Is it just being comfortable and being able to go about your business in a way that doesn't piss you off? Or is happy truly a state of happiness? There's a lot of ways to look at that. And I think for every person, you're going to get a different answer when you ask, what is being happy?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we're all a little guilty of, how was your day? Fine.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean? What? And I think the movie tries to grapple with some of that.
Yeah. Well, and everyone, when they were sitting at that table, and there was that when they were sitting at that table going around the thing with the lemon, the coffees, and everyone was ordering their coffees, and then someone just got a twist of lemon, then everyone needs the twist, like that kind of thing. I just remember there were a lot of like the way they filmed it, like people would be talking and then they'd really focus because they'd be like looking at the other person, kind of like trying to like break them down. And what are you all about? And you know what I'm saying? Like no one was very chill. Everyone was trying to figure out what that other person's thing was, until the one gal came in that was the journalist, and she didn't really seem to give a hoot about what anyone thought or on what side of the road to drive on, until she made that one statement. It was a little bit profane, but I still don't know why everyone reacted so negatively to that. you know?
Yeah.
And then everyone's just like, oh, and then they had to kind of apologize for her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was.
And their yeah, that seemed to me a little. Are they apologizing? She's being not fake, like.
Yeah.
Well, it's because they're real.
Yeah.
Right.
The restaurant was funny. Like I don't know what to say about that. And then the bank. Then they were at the bank for wasn't that the Fourth Reich Bank?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just like, oh my gosh.
Yep.
And the restaurant was L'Idiot. I know it's L'Idiot.
L'Idiot.
Oh my gosh.
It's jokes like that the first time they didn't hit you over the head with L'Idiot 5 or 6 times, you probably missed the whole joke.
Yeah.
Right.
First time you're like, L'Idiot, okay. Wait a minute.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or what is it? Chevy Chase's character when he's waiting in line at the restaurant. He's like, your usual table, Mr. Christopher? No, I'd like a good one this time. I'm sorry, that is impossible. Part of the new cruelty? I'm afraid so. As if the new cruelty is like an artistic or food culinary movement.
Right.
Yeah.
Part of the new cruelty, I see. Okay.
And then the food too. There was some pretty interesting food there. Or did they? Or I'm getting my movies mixed up. I think of something else because they didn't bring any food out and it was like weird or anything, did they? Or
no, that was Temple of Doom.
Yeah, that was Temple of Doom. That's right.
I do one of the parts that I do get a little bit of a laugh out of is that initial when they're sitting around having either brunch or lunch or whatever they're doing, as they're going around the table. Oh, Sheila has been studying the art of conversation. Oh, you're taking a course in conversation? Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Total sidetrack, but we're talking about food. Shocking, I know. This will date the podcast, so those of you listening to it 2 years from now, I apologize now. There is a show on right now, and in 2 years, it'll probably be in season 5, and you'll be able to catch up. On CNN, of all places, I know, Stanley Tucci's Discovering Italy.
Really?
He goes, the plan is to hit all 20 regions and to talk about food. And it's an hour in each region. First season has 6 episodes. Only 2 took place during COVID. So it was all filmed in 2019 before things got weird. Wow.
Really?
I'm hungry. Fulfilled all at the same time. And he's a very interesting man.
I'll have to. Oh man, in Italy.
So
I'll have to check that out, man.
On CNN.
Yeah.
Whatever.
You know, it's funny because I have my cousin is from Rome, and he's got some opinions on what good Italian food and what is not as good. You know, and it's
some
like
fun stuff. The north and the south, and the tomato sauce and the not tomato sauce, and the pasta versus the rice and the polenta, and all.
Right. Heartier dishes versus more refined versus don't even get them started on the pizza thing. I remember I don't want to mention
versus Milan and
and I remember we were going to this spot, and I don't want to mention like names and locations because I don't want anyone to get all up in arms and all that. But I remember it was like this where we were going was famous for the number of Italian restaurants. And he summed it all up. He's like, there's only one you really need to go to. And it's this one, right, of all these other Italian restaurants, because that was the Italian food that was, you know, closest to where he grew up. And it's interesting.
You know, it's funny you mentioned Italy and talking about Europe. Very, very quickly before I get to what I was going to say, we've been watching the first couple of episodes of Men in Kilts, which is a couple of the actors from the Outlander show.
Oh, cool.
And they're driving around Scotland. And the first episode was on food. The second episode was on sports. And it's just been a lot of fun to watch. And I knew this, but not to this extent, like how big seafood is in Scotland and how like the lobsters and oysters and things like that are actually exported around the world. It was a lot of fun to watch. And they ended up doing like a seafood curry that they actually they had like this grill out on the beach and they were preparing it out there. And I'm just like, that you've combined 3 of my favorite things: Scotland, seafood, and curry.
There it is.
This is amazing. This is heaven.
Check.
Mm-hmm. The point I want to make when you were talking about Europe is there are times where, having lived over in Europe for a little bit, like you go to these places and some of the places and some of the buildings that you see are like 1,000 years old. And, you know, and Sharon and I have commented before, we're like, you know, compared to that stuff, America is a pretty young country. Like you're looking at like, hey, this building is like 200 years old or 300 years old. And like, that's nothing compared to, you know, some of the stuff over in Europe and these other countries. I did like that line where he's showing her around the city and he's like, and some of these buildings are over 20 years old.
Yeah, wasn't that awesome?
Yeah.
Because I thought about that whole Stanley Tucci thing, and I was like, oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
That is.
That's funny.
It is amazing, you know, whenever people come in from out of town or whenever, it's always like, oh, we got to take you to this restaurant, or, oh, we got to take you to, do you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like hey, they've just opened up a new, you know, and so much of our, well, and this is the whole big discussion in and around the pandemic. It'll be interesting when that lifts, because like the restaurants and food and all that kind of stuff, it's just, and has it always been that way? I mean, food has always been a part of the culture, but like, you know, like when obviously depression when my grandparents were growing up, but I mean the depression, but it's like, was going out and checking out different restaurants, or, oh, this new such and such restaurant opened up, we've got to go. Do you know what I'm saying? Or was it like, hey, here's the local restaurant that we all go to. And that's, it just seems like, at least before COVID, and I'm hoping that that's going to be one of those things that we pick back up with as a culture. But that food and checking out restaurants, and that's like a big part of it. Do you know what I'm saying? Like a big part of getting to know a culture, I think. So.
Yeah, no, agreed. Question about the characters in this movie, and some of this, I mean, obviously some of this it's a comedy, it's a satire, it's to a certain degree, it's a little absurd with the way things play out. Did you like how the characters were portrayed in this? You know, thinking about Harris himself, his girlfriend Trudy, Sandy, these different characters. I will say the character of Sandy was a lot of fun, and I don't remember if we said this before we started recording or not, but I think one of you said, like, man, Sarah Jessica Parker was hilarious and awesome in this movie. And I didn't realize, I hadn't quite remembered this, but I was reading up something after having watched it again, and she even makes a comment. She's like, I kind of credit this movie with being my breakout role, because before this, I was always somebody's like nerdy little sister in a movie. Like nobody ever cast me for, you know, the attractive character at all. Like I never got cast for that kind of stuff. And then I got cast for that in this movie. And she's like, that kind of changed like the trajectory of my whole career. And what was funny was the thing that she said, I really respected Steve Martin. And when I knew that I had an audition for this movie, I wanted to go into it because I went and watched every single one of his movies up to that point. And I commented to myself, she said that he brings like such a physicality to his comedy. Like there's always something physical related to his comedy. And she's like, that's what I want to do. Like, I don't know how many other young girls are going to go into this trying to like emulate the Steve Martin physicality, but that's what I want to do. So apparently she went into the audition, like, you know, just as hyper as she is in the rest of the movie. And that's what kind of got her the part. Was Steve Martin was like, nobody else is coming here like bouncing off the wall like this, and this is perfect. Like this is exactly what I'm looking for this part. And and I guess even the director, I read somewhere that the director said really his only direction for Sarah Jessica Parker was, Sarah, we're about to start rolling, start bouncing. And that's pretty much it.
Okay.
Yeah, because she did not stop moving.
No.
I'm gonna go spin.
Yeah.
Is spinning okay on this beach?
Yeah. Yeah. So what do you think of the characters? How did you like how the characters were portrayed in this?
Did anyone else feel like this is one of those things that I didn't quite pick up as I was watching it, but sort of after the fact? Did anyone else feel like each character was almost supposed to be one part of a personality? Like, this is Sarah Jessica Parker, it's the fun and the energy, and Trudy is the judginess, and it feels like people were designed as one-dimensional characters almost, in order to highlight the hypocrisy of LA in general. Bring it out a little bit. You know, sometimes you hear about movies being written where three characters are, you know, super ego and ego, you know, that sort of thing. I feel like each one of these characters was written, I don't want to say one-dimensional because it makes them sound dull, and that it's far, far from it. But I feel like they each have a purpose in the story. The more I process it, they each have Sarah Jessica Parker, it's supposed to illustrate fun, the joy of youth almost, and Trudy, the jaded, judgy, whatever that word is. And I haven't been able to narrow down everybody's thing in words yet. The more I think about the movie, the more I feel like each one has a thing.
Sarah was kind of the British reporter. She's kind of like almost like a straightforward innocence.
There it is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like an earnestness.
Yeah.
She might be, her and Steve Martin, her and Harris might be the more fleshed out, full-fledged people, but it's because they're supposed to be.
Yeah.
And maybe the other people are supposed to be reflecting their stuff back at them. Maybe.
I totally agree with you. I did not think of it that way. But what I was going to say was that each character seemed so incredibly unique and was portraying a different kind of a very unique personality. That's as far as I got. But I think, Bo, you're,
okay.
but you're, what you just said was a lot more descriptive and in depth in terms of breaking it down, kind of what was happening. So I mean that, what you said, like +1 or ditto, as they said in Ghost, because that was it. Like each character was just unique and a different, a different dimension's the wrong word. We do too many like multiverse things on here. They were like I'm just going to stop talking because you were exactly right. Yeah. Each character was just very unique.
I did it. One of the other things I liked, it was he goes to the ATM machine. Hi, my name is Bob. I'll be your robber.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah.
And it's just, like some of those moments were so much, if you blink, you're going to miss it.
Well, and I thought he said, my name is Bob. I'm going to be your Robert. And I was like, okay, that's funny.
That works too.
The other way was even funnier.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man.
We did mention earlier about the music. That we said there's a lot of Enya in this. There's a lot of different styles of music in this. Of course, you have bagpipes. You got classical music. You've got Pat. You popped in the chat here that it was Somewhere Beyond the Sea.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and it was sung in French.
Yeah,
yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that theme comes back later.
Mm-hmm.
Somewhere Beyond the Sea.
Bum, bum.
Yeah.
It's back a few times, sort of in the background.
Yeah.
Just set up some scenes and tie it all.
So do you feel like the music
on it?
Yeah. Do you feel like the music supported the mood of the movie, or were there times that it might have been distracting?
100%. Yes.
Yeah. Excellent.
To the first, to support it, not the distracting.
They spent a lot of time on the music. I have a feeling because it just worked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Weren't trying to shoehorn in anything fancy or, make a soundtrack, for lack of a better way to say it.
Right.
They said, okay, this scene makes me feel like this.
Mm-hmm.
Play that song.
Yeah.
Well, and it's like, and the references to Shakespeare so often is like, so much of Shakespeare is like mixing the magical and the ethereal with the like down in the dirt real life stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the music seemed to do that too. Like when you brought in Enya, it was it's very dreamlike. It's it's calming, it's beautiful, or it's meant to be calming and beautiful, and and then you mix it in with the other different types of movies or music. I mean,
yeah. It was. I thought the whole thing came together to make a really entertaining story.
Well, I've got a couple of questions for us before we get into our 3 questions. I'm going to add these in maybe for every movie that we talk about from here on out.
Before the 3 questions.
The questions before the 3 questions. Yes.
Oh, wow.
These are 2 questions with a twist of lemon.
Hors d'oeuvre. Okay. These are hors d'oeuvre questions.
Yes, these are hors d'oeuvre questions. Yes.
I love hors d'oeuvres.
These are the brunch questions.
I love a good brunch.
Oh my gosh.
There we go.
Talk about things I miss from before times.
Yeah.
Brunch.
So these questions, and I stole these from a couple of different spots, but this kind of gets at the heart of our does it hold up 30 years later that we kind of ask ourselves sometimes when it comes to these movies. So 2 questions to try to get at that. If this movie was being released in theaters today, what would be the reason you would go to see it?
Steve Martin.
There it is. Very
well done.
Even with the Zoom lag, we had I can't get my band students to give it play on it, Oh man.
There you go. Okay. I think that'd be my answer too. So
yeah.
Okay. All right. And then second question, would you buy this movie so not just if it's on a streaming service, would you actually go out and buy a copy of this movie? Digital, Blu-ray, DVD? Would you spend the money? Because sometimes that's a bit of a decision. If I'm looking at a movie, I'm like, well, what causes me? I've got it available on streaming, so I can watch it whenever, or I could go check it out from the library for free. There are certain movies I'm like, I need to own this movie. Would you buy this movie?
Yeah, I would.
Okay.
I could keep watching this movie. It's like eating olives or eating eating peanuts, you can't stop eating peanuts and they taste really good. That's like this movie. So yeah, I'd buy it.
I'm not sure. I liked it and I'll watch it again someday, but I don't know if it's shelf space worthy, if that means anything.
I'm looking at my Blu-ray DVD 4K shelving over here, and I don't have any more shelf space.
Well,
so this would be
got to get on that.
I know this would be one that something else would have to go if I was gonna do that. I might be the same as Bo. I really enjoyed the movie. I really do like the movie, but I'm not sure if it would be one that I would actually buy the physical copy of the disc. I think it'd be one that if I knew it was available streaming somewhere, I'd be like, all right, it's always available there. But I'm not sure it would be one for me. I don't know if it hits that level. I really enjoy it, but I don't know if it hits that level for me that I would actually buy a copy of it.
And it's funny because that question comes at such a weird time for me. I mean, I still have my 19-year-old DVD player and DVDs, and I need to get a Blu-ray player. And now I know there's 14K.
Yeah, just skip to the 5K now.
Okay, just get 5. But then I need the 5K TV.
What's 5K? Then you run, and that's what powers it.
Well, that, yeah. So that hits. So, and now that's got me thinking, it's interesting when you look at my movie collection, the movies that I get, and it's a mix of these are the greatest movies ever, I need them, and impulse buys that I was just passing by and, saw and, oh, I need this, that kind of thing.
Yeah. I'm looking at my movie collection. I've got them off to the side over here and mine, the ones that are the ones I bought. I mean, they're primarily, actually a lot of them are action movies. A lot of them are the sci-fi, they're the superhero. It's all the comic book movies. It's the Alien movies. It's the Batman movies, Back to the Future, Terminator, Braveheart, Blazing Saddles, Blues Brothers. I'm just looking at the B's right now. Yeah, and I'm not sure. I always think about that. I always think about like what hits because that's one thing, especially at Christmas time. That seems to be the one thing that, like, for some family members, they're like, "Oh, John loves movies. We'll get him a DVD or a Blu-ray." If they're asking me like, "What do you want for Christmas?" I'm like, "Oh, now is the time." So maybe put some movies on the old Christmas list, and
that's what I do. Yeah,
because otherwise I wouldn't necessarily buy some of the stuff for myself, but I would really love to have them. And that's how I ended up getting the complete Rocky movie set on Blu-ray. That's how I got the Planet of the Apes trilogy on Blu-ray. All that stuff. So yeah, I think it just doesn't quite hit. It's not like a big action movie that I feel like I want to have that physical copy so that I can just watch it anytime, night or day, if it happened to disappear from streaming. I think it would be one that if I wanted to watch it, I could be like, all right, well, I'll interlibrary loan it from the library, and I can wait the 3 or 4 days for it to come in. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I don't know that it hits for me quite the level of, if I needed to watch it at the drop of a hat, I know there's a copy down here that I can go grab.
Got it.
But if it's on, I'm not going to turn it off.
Yeah.
Completely random question, not part of our 3 questions. Would you gentlemen ever feel confident enough to wear a pair of white pants?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
I have.
Have you?
There you go.
But I think I probably spilled stuff on them.
Well, see, I am my father's son, and my father always I don't know if he did this on purpose or if it just was always dumb luck. He always wears some type of a white t-shirt whenever we were having pasta.
Yeah.
And every single white t-shirt he had must have had some kind of pasta stain on it, because it was a running gag in the family. Like, did you know we were having spaghetti tonight? No.
Yeah.
I have the same problem.
Yeah.
White night.
I'm not sure I would do the white pants.
Mm-mm.
That was just a random question. All right. From random questions to 3 questions.
He asks each traveler 5 questions. 3 questions. 3 questions.
It's impossible to answer.
Impossible because you don't know the answer.
Nobody could answer that question.
I want to ask you a bunch of questions. I want to have them answered immediately.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
All right, question number 1. What is your favorite movie that showcases locations around a specific city? So you're watching the movie and you're like, boom, that's Chicago. Or, ooh, I know exactly where that is. That is Los Angeles. That's New York City. What is your favorite movie that really kind of uses a city, as we've kind of said sometimes before, almost as if it's a character in the movie?
I think I've used this movie to answer just about 100 to 200 of the last 3 questions, but I'm going to say Heat. And I mean, it's not that I know LA that well, but I mean, I think if I remember right, that movie was filmed entirely on location, entirely, out in quote unquote real places. So I think I'd have to say Heat. I mean, the easy one. Well, I've got some honorable mentions, but I'll let you guys throw your stuff out there first. I don't want to hog.
I don't know. For me, the 2 that I wrote down, one is The Dark Knight. Like, I think any of the Christopher Nolan Batman movies, even though it's Gotham City, quote unquote Gotham City in the movies, it's Chicago. And, if you are from Chicago, or if you spend any amount of time in Chicago and you know the locations, you're watching that movie and you're like, that is Lower Wacker, or that is LaSalle, or that is, you know it. Just the moment you see it, you know it. So that one for me, I think also Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Now, I think I mentioned that one before, that I'm like, even before I ever set foot in Chicago, I remember watching that movie and be like, that's a cool city. Like going to the baseball game, going to the museum, all this other stuff. Like, that's really cool. I like this. I like this. I know nothing about Chicago, but I think I had a friend in 8th grade when I lived in Missouri, and I think he was from Chicago. And the only things I knew about Chicago was that he was from Chicago. And when I was a kid, I had a Michael Jordan poster up on my wall, and I knew he was from Chicago. And like, other than that, I know nothing about the actual city itself, but this movie is fun. So for me, I'd say I'd do a tie between The Dark Knight and Ferris Bueller.
All right.
Which would be an amazing mashup movie if they put them both together in the same thing.
Yes. Yes.
The Dark Knight's Day Off. They drive the Batmobile backwards.
Yeah.
Oh, what about you?
So I thought about Ferris Bueller. I thought about The Fugitive. I think there's a lot of the geography of Chicago that shows up in that. But a lot of river stuff shows up in The Fugitive. And then I got to thinking more outside of Chicago, and I came up with Die Hard with a Vengeance.
Oh.
Look who's here. It used New York in an interesting way because of the roads and the trucks driving through tunnels and bridges and rivers and things.
That was it. John and I are not done watching that one yet. It's taken like 5 sittings and we just have not finished. We started it late one night. Like that's our weird thing with the Die Hard movies is it was winter break and he wanted, and I was like, I got to introduce you to this movie. You're old enough now. We're going to watch Die Hard. He's like, all right. Like, it's a great Christmas movie. So we got to watch this. So we did over winter break. We watched it. We stayed up late. We finished it. I want to say it finished at around 12:30, close to 1 o'clock in the morning. And he's like, wait, I saw you take this out of like a box set. Is there another one? Yes, there is a Die Hard 2. He's like, I'm not tired. Can we start it? Like, okay. So we started Die Hard 2, and I think we got maybe an hour into that one, and I started falling asleep. I'm like, buddy, I want to watch this with you, but I'm fading fast here. So can we start this again some other time? He's like, yeah, that's fine. So we got about halfway through the movie, and then we ended up finishing it later on. So we finished it, stayed up late one night, we finished that, and he's like, weren't there more than 2 movies in that box set? I was like, yes. It's like, can we watch the other one? It's like, sure. So we did the exact same thing. We got about a third of the way through Die Hard with a Vengeance, and it was the same thing. I was like, okay, I'm falling asleep again. We got to stop this. We'll finish it some other time. And then a couple of different times here and there, like if I'm taking him somewhere, and we're eating in the car or whatever before we picked up some food, and we're eating in the car, sitting in the parking lot eating in the car before I take him wherever he's going. We'll pop it on my phone for a little bit, and so we are not finished yet, but we're so close to finishing Die Hard with a Vengeance. And that is probably, and I think I've mentioned this before when we did Die Hard, like that's Die Hard with a Vengeance is, I have a hard time choosing between Die Hard and Die Hard with a Vengeance. Cause it's
very good.
I really like that movie.
That's cool.
The copness of it is fun.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, because I think we said that before when we covered the movies when we did Die Hard with a Vengeance was supposed to have been a Lethal Weapon movie, and then they took it and it wasn't going to get produced as a Lethal Weapon movie, so they just took it. They're like, all right, we'll make it a Die Hard movie.
Yeah,
you can feel that.
Yeah. All right. Question 2: what is your favorite Shakespeare play?
I'm just going to throw in 2 quick honorable mentions to that favorite location. Real quick, I would just say the 2 chase scenes, Blues Brothers and Bullet.
Yes.
Enough said about those. Racing those cars through the city streets like that. And I think those chase scenes were unique among chase scenes, if that's unless there's something I'm thinking about or not thinking about, but they really showed San Francisco. They really showed Chicago in those chase scenes, as opposed to it just being, cars driving fast and you really can't see what you're looking at. So
I'm glad you said Blues Brothers. I totally I'd blanked out on Blues Brothers. I would have included that too, because I've seen that movie since I was way too little to ever have seen Blues Brothers.
Oh yeah.
Excuse me, do you have a Miss Piggy? As a kid, I thought one day that might be totally acceptable that I would drive a car through a shopping mall, but
of course,
alas, it is not to have been yet.
Well, and I'll say they showed off the streets of Chicago until they got to the bridge and the ramps and all that kind of stuff, then that was Milwaukee, you know, which was cool in and of itself that they were showing off, you know.
Yeah.
Well, because back then everyone still thought Milwaukee was going to eventually just get sucked into Chicago.
Yes, there it is.
It's funny you say that. When I was living in Missouri, for the year that I was living in Missouri in 8th grade, that was one of the things that I remember because my dad, the year that we lived in Missouri, my dad had gotten a job in Chicago. And so he had kind of gotten it halfway through the school year. And he's like, I don't want you, we've moved around enough in the last year. I don't want you guys moving out of school. So stay here, finish your 8th grade school year. And my sister and my brother finish their school years. And then you guys will come up to Chicago. So he was living in Chicago for about, I'd say maybe at least 8 months while we were still back in Missouri finishing up school. And it's one of the things I remember about that is that in our social studies class, I remember in our social studies class, the teacher making a point of saying, well, yeah, there are these, you could almost call them a megalopolis. Like it's bigger than just one city. It's a cluster of cities that are so close that they make these massive metropolitan areas. And you've got like Los Angeles on the West Coast, you've got New York on the East Coast, and you've got Chicago and Milwaukee right in the center of the country. And I'm like, really? And the teacher was like, yeah, it's really from Chicago to Milwaukee. It's really just one massive city in that whole area. And I was like, whoa, that's what we're moving to? Oh, that's going to be weird. And I remember he had some map that he showed us where it was like this giant red blob of just how it was one big city that was Chicago and Milwaukee. So I had this whole, moving up here, I had this whole thing of like, wow, they're like right next to each other. And then we moved up here and I'm like, no. That goes into that book, Lies My Teacher Told Me.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Question number 2. What is your favorite Shakespeare play?
This is hard, man.
Yeah.
It might be an easy one for me. I'm going to go Othello.
Okay.
I like Othello. It's a good, it's good Shakespeare. It's got an amazing villain. Iago is like one of the greatest villains ever. And just the whole psychology of the whole thing, the way as a villain that he twists people is just, I don't know, just the way it's written, just Shakespeare did an amazing job with that one. So that one's probably my favorite. I got to go Othello. And if anybody wants to see a movie version of it that is also amazing, the Lawrence Fishburne one.
Yes.
Okay.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Kenneth Branagh plays Iago. Lawrence Fishburne plays Othello. It's absolutely wonderful.
Shakespeare with Kenneth Branagh in it is usually pretty darn good.
You're going to be totally fine. You're in good hands. What about you guys?
Patrick?
I don't know Shakespeare as much as I should. I'm just going to preface it that Julius Caesar, I like a whole lot. I remembered enjoying Hamlet, but it's been forever since I've seen /watched /read it. So, Romeo and Juliet, also very, very good. I think Julius Caesar was my favorite.
I do enjoy the Scottish play as well.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, Julius Caesar. That's
what I got.
I basically bet my wife because of Julius Caesar.
Well, there you go.
Hail Caesar.
Yes, during study hall, she needed help with Julius Caesar. And I was like, well, luckily for you, I just moved over from England. So I basically have it from the source.
There it is. Look at you, man.
Not only can I help you with Julius Caesar, I could probably do it in like whatever is left of my British accent.
Nice.
Here, children.
John Reed with the power move.
Careful, this is how Mommy and Daddy met.
Oh, dear. Oh, dear.
You okay there, Bo?
Yeah. Okay, I'm back.
Now, if you want to tie your favorite Shakespeare play into food, we could talk about Titus Andronicus.
We could.
Mm-hmm.
We could.
Yeah. Pat, do you know that one?
I don't know Titus Andromachus.
To get back at the Titus, to get back at the character that has wronged him, he ends up murdering her children and baking them into pies and then feeding them to her.
Oh, jeez.
So.
Ain't no fun.
That's how they rolled back then.
So, I mean, when I talk about food and Shakespeare, then.
Yes,
well,
sir.
I did want to talk about food and Shakespeare.
But do I still? I've always been partial to Midsummer Night's Dream and Much Ado About Nothing. Again, Kenneth Branagh. Midsummer Night's Dream also stars Kevin Kline and the aforementioned Stanley Tucci.
As doesn't he play Puck?
He does.
Yeah.
And Puck, as my tastes age like a fine wine,
there it is.
Puck may have become one of my favorite Shakespeare characters.
Okay.
I don't think he would have been back in high school, but there's a wise man there.
If we could jump back just a second to Soap Dish, don't you mean Calvin Klein?
I do.
Okay.
I do.
Okay. I told the guys.
It's written in his underwear.
Yeah. Yeah. I told the guys on the Shirley podcast we were recording something else, and what did it? They accidentally called me. You know what? Actually, Jason, he was introducing me on it, and I think he accidentally called me because we were talking about Superman stuff, and he accidentally introduced me as John Reeves.
Oh, there it is.
And I was like, no, I'll take it.
Yes.
I will take it.
When someone asks if you're a god,
you say yes.
Yes.
When someone asks if you're related to Christopher Reeve, you say yes.
Yes. Yes, I am.
Yes. So then I told them about, we just recorded Soap Dish, and I apparently like 3 or 4 times I kept calling him Calvin Klein, and ultimately Bo was like, John, you mean Kevin Klein? Yes, that is exactly what I meant. I have no clue what I'm saying.
That is your name, isn't it? It's written all over your underwear.
All over your underwear.
All right, question number 3. If you worked at a TV news station, what position would you prefer? Reporter, anchor, meteorologist, sports, traffic copter? I didn't include that one in the list. You could do that one too.
Done.
Traffic copter? That's what you do? Okay.
Yeah.
We got a water buffalo jackknife up there. It's not a very pretty picture.
I knew it was coming.
That's right, man. There's
horns everywhere. What happened? Maybe drop a little napalm there, try to cook him down. Maybe a little barbecue. Love the smell of napalm in the morning. I would choose reporter. Like that was when I was in school for journalism before moving over to education. That was my thing. Like I wanted to be a reporter. I wanted to be out there. I wanted to be interviewing people. I could do the job where you sit at the desk and you read the teleprompter, but I don't know. That's for me. I think I'd want to be one of the reporters. Now, we do always say when we're watching the news and there are the reporters that are like on location when there's a blizzard outside or something ridiculous is going on. Sharon and I always comment, we're like, would you let the guy back in the studio?
Yeah, I know.
Like there's not actually anything. So he's reporting from the scene. Is there anything happening at the scene right now? No, this happened like 6 hours ago. Or they're reporting from the school, from outside the school, and it's a late night school board meeting. Is he inside? Are there people around? No. And let the guy get back in the truck or let him drive back to the studio. He doesn't have to be out in the snow and the sleet and the volcanic ash that's coming down around him. That's the only thing about being the reporter is that I would not want to do.
Maybe he likes it.
Maybe. That's what we always say. We're like, I really hope that they enjoy being outside all the time. What would you gentlemen choose? What position within the newsroom would you choose?
Well, I'm like I said, if you're offering traffic copter,
okay,
I'll take that as long as I get to be the pilot. Do I get to be the pilot?
Sure.
All right.
You can be the pilot and the reporter.
I'll do that.
Okay.
I'll do that.
Well, you know what I always say? I never wanted to be a weather forecaster. I wanted to be a lumberjack. If I had to be in a newsroom, I'd probably be the sports guy.
Okay.
You get to go to games once in a while. You get to talk about something fun. And really, The sports guy isn't on that long because they keep taking time away from the sports guy for weather and traffic. So,
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Just do your thing and go.
Yeah. All right. All right. Well, that's going to do it for our 3 questions. That's also going to do it for LA Story. And I don't think I mentioned this from the onset. Gentlemen, this is our 350th episode.
Whoa.
Happy 350, boys.
Happy 350. So couldn't have happened to a nicer
That's a
movie.
milestone. What'd you say?
I said couldn't have happened to a nicer movie.
Yes, exactly.
But yeah, we're going to have, so we weren't doing anything special necessarily for 350, but for 400, we got some ideas. We got some ideas in the back pocket. The one idea that I did like was re-recording that original first episode that died.
Yeah.
Because of the mariachi band.
Yeah.
How many times do you get to say that? Our first podcast was ruined by mariachi music and chips. It all comes back to food. You know what? I think it's because we recorded the first episode in a restaurant. We've been locked into food ever since then.
Yes.
Ever since.
Yeah, that's
and
fine.
food tastes good.
Oh, that's true too. There's nothing wrong with that. All right. Well, head on over to 30podcast.com if you want to find more of our episodes at 30podcast on social media. If you want to leave us a voicemail, that's a great way to, get a message to us and we can play it on the show and respond to it. You can do that over at our website at 30podcast.com. There is a leave a voicemail button that's there. Don't forget to check out our sponsor and the rest of the shows in the Scene Stealers podcast network by heading over to www.scenestealersglobal.com. And then our next episode's coming up. We finish off our California Dreams month with career opportunities. And then May is our Crime Doesn't Pay month. We got Boys in the Hood, Bugsy. The French Connection is our May Patreon episode. The Last Boy Scout and Point Break. June is Shots Fired, Ricochet, JFK. Guns of the Navarone is our June Patreon. Naked Gun 2.5, Hot Shots and Toy Soldiers. And then July is our Across the Pond month. And in our Across the Pond month, we have King Ralph, The Commitments, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, and Hook. And our July Patreon is going to be a book review, if you will, of the Heir to the Empire Thrawn trilogy from 1991. So, all good stuff coming.
Yes.
All good stuff. All right. Bo, Pat, thank you as always for being here with me.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
Everybody, we thank you for being here. Thank you. We've always enjoyed every single time we do this. We do it for fun, but we just enjoy so much getting to interact with all of you too. So if you love LA Story, even if you don't love LA Story, we'd love to hear from you. So reach out to us. Let us know what you're thinking too. And we'd be happy to reply back on a future show. So in the meantime, however, be excellent to each other. Go watch some good movies, and we'll see you back here next time for Career Opportunities.